there have been times in my life where I have tried to join spiritual communities, go to meditations, do all these things that involved groups of people. And some way or another, I would feel uncomfortable in them. I would feel like everyone was brainwashed. I would feel like I didn't like some of the things that we were doing. I just always had this aversion to spiritual groups. And although there were times that many were helpful in my journey, and I don't kind of regret any of those experiences, but I always felt like there was something wrong about relying on someone else to guide your spiritual path, your spiritual journey. And this is not to shame anyone who is in a spiritual group or part of a religion, part of a church, but it always felt like there was an underlying discomfort for myself where I was thinking, you know, I could see the worshiping of the teacher versus worshiping of the information or the process, and even the word worshiping, just a respect for your own spiritual journey, your own spiritual path seemed much more important than who was teaching it or what are they doing or tell me a method. All of these things that seemed like rigid dogma really made me feel like not well inside. So I always stayed away from them. Even though there were times where I even would pray for a spiritual teacher to help me along the way, it's as if my soul journey this time around just never gave me anyone. It never just, I never felt comfortable with a spiritual teacher. And I remember going to this party with a friend where there was a pastor and he was telling everyone that they would go to hell. And I remember thinking, everyone is going to hell. Everyone in this room is going to hell. And I remember thinking to myself, there's something wrong with us just blindly believing this. Because this man calls himself a pastor, we are supposed to believe that whatever he says is true. So my cousin who just, is Muslim, and my other cousin who's Christian, and then my other friend who's this or whatever, they're just all going to go to hell because they don't go to your church and believe in your exact denomination of your religion. It just didn't sit right with me. And I remember at that point just starting to question everything. And I always think of the people who are just living in nature. Say they're just, a tribe in the Amazon, somewhere secluded on this planet. Right now, there are people who live so close to nature that they've been somewhat isolated from the missionaries and the other influences of religion. And are they going to hell? Are they just bad people because they don't have something that we understand as religion and beliefs or a spiritual teacher? And maybe they just have a shaman in their tribe, in their village. So what do they have that guides them? And if you look at those cultures around the world and throughout history, what guides them usually is somewhat of there is a leader who helps make decisions, or a group of leaders. And perhaps there is a shaman that usually does what? They dream or they have visions and they kind of dance between realms to give advice or to know which herbs to use to heal. And my great grandfather was a dreamer. He would have dreams of herbs and he would heal people with them. And this was, I don't know what year this was, but they called him just like a backyard medicine man because he was in just South Carolina doing this for the people at his church even. But then it was a little different because it was more accepted that there are just people on this planet who just know a little more about plants. And, back then they didn't have big pharmaceutical companies giving, medicine. And so someone relying on their dreams, and maybe he didn't even tell people that he used his dreams to know which herbs, but he would just know where to get them. But anyways, that information wasn't passed down. That respect for dreams wasn't always passed down. And so when it comes to my own journey, I had to really differentiate between following a spiritual teacher and the inner guidance I would feel from my dreams and from my intuition and from visions and that in-between state. And the reason I wanted to make this video is because if this is you, if you feel somewhat overwhelmed by the amount of spiritual gurus that you see on social media, or the amount of different types of churches and religions and denominations and sects and these kind of like these ideas of religion that we have divided up into so many different groups, that it's like, well, how can I just choose one? How can I not believe in something that is the foundation of them all? If that's you, you're not alone. I feel like sometimes I go on to YouTube and it's just, because of the way my algorithm is, it's just self-help central and everyone is helping each other, which is great, but it actually can feel really overwhelming to my system of like, what do I actually believe? What actually works for me? And I'm trying to take little pieces from everything, helping me get organized, helping me with my budget and all these different ways that self-help is great, but then there's an information overload and I notice that I can't hear my own voice. I can't hear my own connection to source anymore because I am completely overloaded with everyone else's connection. And so I encourage you to clean up your inner timeline of what you actually believe. And for myself, that meant a lot of unlearning. It meant, I mean, it took me years of unlearning, I believe, like years. Yeah. About 15 years of unlearning it took me to really say, no, you know what? I am at a point where I can trust myself. I can trust myself to be my own spiritual teacher, because those people, those tribes that live in the jungle, yes, they have a shaman, but they also were so in tune with their own thoughts because they weren't, overstimulated by being fed things and consuming information all day, that they could hear their own intuition. They knew where to, go next. They knew a deeper sense of reality and truth with their lives because they were so, I don't want to say clean, but just clear. Clear is the word. They were so clear that they could understand their dream language. They could understand their intuitive language. They could understand the language of the universe, of the cosmos, of the stars, of the plants, the animals, and all of it joining into one was the spiritual experience, was the spiritual teacher. And it's the same now. And so if you feel overwhelmed, if you feel like I want to just turn everything off, but what if I need the help that someone else can offer, or that spiritual teacher that I follow, or that church that I follow, if I log off of everything, will I be lost? And I promise you, if you get to know your own inner language, your intuitive language, your language that you speak with God, with Creator, universe, whatever you want to say, and I know all these words are going to trigger people, and it doesn't matter, good. Figure out what you want to call it, and then call it that, and then connect with it and say, let's learn our language that we have together. Let me learn the language that my higher self speaks, not the ego version who has skin that looks like this and hair that looks like this and does this and was born here. Not that ego version, but your higher self, your truest essence, your awareness of being in a body itself. Returning to that, rewinding to that state, and peeling off all the ideas that you have built onto who you are and what you should believe, and sitting there, simply sitting there, waiting, allowing the dreams to come, allowing the messages to come, the visions to come, all of it will be revealed. What to do, your next steps. Because when we think of a spiritual leader, we think of a spiritual teacher. When we think of a spiritual teacher, we think of someone who has the answers to the many questions that we have. When you really settle in to yourself and you really look at yourself in the mirror, and I will repeat this over and over, that dream work is mirror work. Dream work is looking at your self without the mind, without the ego, and saying, what am I? What do I truly believe? What am I doing flying around this world? How does it actually make me feel as the one who is aware of this, the one who is experiencing this? Where am I missing that when I'm waking up? Why is my reality so different when I wake up? Is it really different? And when you have these questions, when you sit with this and you allow the answers to just flow, and you allow the answers to be revealed to you in your own language, I promise you, it's as if you don't need anything else except for yourself and some rest and some good sleep. And, of course, you can look at anyone who doesn't get good sleep. And that was me for a while when I had insomnia my junior year of college. And when I tell you the madness that I felt not getting sleep, not dreaming, and then when I did go to sleep and have dreams, they were overwhelmingly full of symbolism that then when I woke up, I couldn't remember fully, because it was as if my body, my mind was still racing, even trying to understand the symbols that I was seeing. My mind was still trying to process both worlds at the same time, versus allowing yourself to surrender to the sleep state, to the dream state, to the messages, and having the intent before you go to sleep to say, I am open to the messages that I will receive. I am open to the guidance that I will receive. The spiritual guidance doesn't have to be anything outside of your heart. You are just as connected as that spiritual teacher that you believe has more answers to you. You are absolutely exactly the same connection, just perhaps with more on your mind, perhaps with, just trying to survive and pay your bills, or just didn't think about something in the same way as someone else. But that doesn't mean you don't have your own spiritual language, your own spiritual journey that will take you to the exact same place that you believe the spiritual teacher is going to take you. If you go yourself, if you are brave enough to venture yourself into this realm, into being your, I want to call it like spiritual sovereignty, or your independence, your belief that you won't have the answers if you look for them, you will realize very quickly those answers will come. They will come. And they will come in a way that increases your faith in you, increases your faith in your relationship with all that is, with your higher self, your higher awareness, all the things that will forever guide your way for the rest of your life. Because once that spiritual teacher is gone, or once that belief system that you had, the church that you went to, burns down, or they were involved in shady business or whatever it is, what's left? What's left? It's just you're left. What's left after all the people that, you respected are gone, or you no longer respect them? What's left? It's that crack in the timeline. It's that crack in your reality that is going to beautifully reveal that all along it was you. All along everything was just a mirror to how powerful you were and how beautiful you are and how much your heart already knows the way. Your inner compass is completely aligned just as much as anyone else's once you get out of the way, once you get your mind out of the way. So I don't want this to seem like you shouldn't listen to anyone else's advice. I'm on here giving advice, but always remember to reflect it back to you into how you're going to navigate if you had no one around you. If you were on the mountaintop and it's just you out there and you have to figure out your way down, you have to figure out your way through the world without any language of God, spiritual practices, what should I do? What was my routine? How do I meditate? If all of that disappeared, what would you be left with? You would be left with your waking state. You would be left with your sleeping state. You would be left with having to look around you and see what guides you, what inspires you. And then when you're asleep, you would have to think about, what do these dreams mean? We spend 1/3 of our life asleep. There's meaning there, and there's something to learn there. And it's as if it's a whole nother realm that we're living in. So I better pay attention to it and see what it's telling me. And it will. As soon as we respect our dreams, we will now see them as completely different experiences that will guide, provide clarity, wisdom, everything. And so, yes, you are your greatest spiritual teacher because you are connected to it all. Just plain and simple. And this doesn't discredit any spiritual teacher that has ever walked this planet or not walked this planet. Whatever you believe, still believe, but always mirror it back to you. And always trust that your dreams will still reveal everything that you need to know about truth, about who you are. You just have to allow yourself to be clear enough to see, to listen, and to understand. So thank you for listening, and I will see you on the next video.